Welcome. This is Donna with Vibrant Living with on your podcast. You were designed for greatness. I am looking forward to today. I have a special guest. Dawn is with me today, and she is going to be telling us about her journey. Say good morning. Well, it is morning when we're recording. Say hello.
Hi, Donna. Good morning, and good morning, all of you beautiful listeners. Donna, I have to just say, I love the title of your podcast because I truly believe there's greatness inside of every one of us. Good job.
Thank you. We were created in the image of God, and therefore there is a special for every single one of us. So let us get to know you. Tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, first thing that you should know about me is I want to start with my grandchildren. I have 11 amazing grandchildren.
Wow.
20 years old, all the way down to the terrible two. And so they're awesome and wonderful. And they were given to me by three amazing children that I birthed. And so also their spouses. So we have a wonderful full family. I have two amazing stepsons, and my husband, Paul, is the just absolute dream of my life. So God, in his redemption plan, had for me another opportunity to fulfill my role as a wife and a mom. So I'm doing that. I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a new enterprise that I've launched. I'm the lead pastor of Tribes Church, trying to do this multicultural work, bringing God's people together. Author, podcaster also, and I love dogs and pizza.
Me too. Me too. So where did you grow up?
I grew up right here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was born in Holland, Michigan, tulip time, but I didn't remember anything about that. My earliest memories are from Grand Rapids, and I have been here. I mean, I live in Rockford, Michigan now, so I feel like I've really made progress in my life. But I've always lived here, went to the Grand Rapids public schools, and just
awesome.
Native. Mm-hmm.
And did you have a wonderful childhood?
No, I did not. There were parts of my childhood that were absolutely wonderful. I had amazing grandparents that lived on a 60 acre farm and lake. It was a private lake, and summers in Indiana. How can you beat that? But there were some turbulent times in my childhood. I think they started when I was kind of a teenager, if you will, maybe 11, 12 in there. So those formative years were real solid for me. And I know my parents loved me. But I'll tell you, Donna, one night I feel like I went to bed as an innocent child. And the next morning I woke up as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Oh. And that daytime hero called my dad became a perpetrator. I really don't remember at all the first time, but I have many memories of ongoing abuse throughout my childhood. So that made it turbulent and troubling.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Even though it was years ago, I'm still so sorry.
It's heart-wrenching whenever we hear anyone's story. Everyone's story is unique, and at the same time, it's all too common. And so many survivors, I've worked with survivors for years and years, and we could just write our stories down and then just trade pages and they'd all be almost identical.
Yes, the feelings are the same.
Yeah, but the impact and the scarring is just, very unique. And what I didn't know, Donna, is that when I finally got through those years at home, there's a lot of nuances there. People will say, well, why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you stop it? If you know anything about incest, if you know anything about abuse, you'll understand that survivors, victims, if you will, we don't talk, we don't tell. We're really good at keeping secrets, and we're really good at denying, and we're really good at stuffing all the things down and keeping it in a compartment labeled deal with that later.
Yes.
And so by the way, later always comes.
Yes, it does.
And so I thought when I got out of the house and I got married and I was 19 and I had my first baby, I thought all of that was over. But that's when the deal with it later box got opened. I didn't open it, but my body did. And I started going through massive depression and anxiety and panic attacks because my marriage now was mimicking, I'm sleeping at night with a man and I couldn't sleep. I was going to bed. And that's when I recognized,
Yes.
I'm in trauma. I didn't know that then. I know it now.
Yes. I still, if someone touches me at night, I'm instantly awake, even if it's my husband.
Yeah.
Even if it's the dog that jumped on the bed,
Yeah.
it's like I'm instantly awake, and it's been years. And so it's just weird how your body is programmed and what happens to us. So,
and when you say instantly awake, it's not like, oh, I'm awake. It's like I'm alert.
yes,
I'm awake. I'm in vigilance. I'm in stress. I'm in fight or flight that fast.
That fast. And you were deep sleep.
Deep sleep.
And yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Those feelings as well. So what happened next?
Well, so I will say, and this is something else that a lot of people don't understand. I never reported, I never told anyone until late in years. I didn't go on to have a relationship with my dad, but at the same time, I craved his love. I love my dad. And my dad did pass away, but before he died, he contracted cancer, actually, and melanoma on his eyeball, and he ended up metastasizing to the liver. But before he passed, he acknowledged the abuse. He asked for forgiveness. He wept bitterly. I did too. And we had about 9 months of a beautiful relationship. While he was dying, actually, my sisters and I did some caretaking for him. We were hospice. Hospice did come in. But I'm very thankful for me that God gave me the end of the story and allowed me to understand my own dad's trauma and his difficulties and his demons. And I do mean demons, the strongholds of the enemy in his life. But so I had to then manage, so now I'm this young adult, married, and I got babies and stuff. And then when my daughter became about the age that I suspect that I started being abused, that triggered me. And that's when the layers of, I say, my body told on me, and I had to open that box. Depression came in, and I had never experienced depression. I was I'm an A-type person, and I was bubbly and outgoing, and nor had I experienced anxiety. Although as I reflect on that, I probably didn't know what to call it, but there was a lot of fear in my childhood. And so that fear just all stripped the chemicals. I think my brain said, we're done keeping secrets, and we're done keeping all the balls in the water. And all of a sudden, everything, I couldn't keep it together. And so that started the trail, the bloody trail, I think, emotionally, of the therapeutic endeavor of bringing my story to light, telling myself the truth about what happened, being willing to come out of denial that no, your home wasn't this picture perfect. It was picture perfect on the outside, but on the inside, and it hurt you. And it doesn't matter if it didn't hurt someone else. You don't have to be brave and strong and just keep marching on, because that's my temperament. I love all things brave. Just do it. But the downside to that is that sometimes we neglect the care, and we don't attune to our own heart that's bleeding. And so that was my story. So I started down that road of dealing with it and feeling it and acknowledging it, and then giving Dawn honor and respect for what she survived and what she went through, and saying, good job, Dawn. You did well, honey. Instead
what
of
we don't
all
realize, what we don't realize is that actually sharing it and being honest with ourselves is super brave. It has to be brave, because that is scary, to tell what happened to us and face the reality of it, as well as the shame that's associated with it, and all of the guilt. And, and even the question, why didn't you tell, X, as if it was your fault? All of those kind of questions just add, and compound what you're already feeling on the inside.
Mhm.
So you got some help, but what are some keys that help you to make that transition?
Well, you just said it too, and thank you for putting it that way, because sometimes just speaking your truth is the bravest thing you can do.
Yes.
And I believe that that was where it started for me. And I think that's true for all of us. You know, don't we all say we have to acknowledge it? And this happened, and tell your story, and tell your story. Don't just tell it to anyone. The first time I tried to tell
Yes.
my story was to my former spouse, and he said, "Why didn't you stop it?" And the mountain of shame that came on me, he didn't know what he was saying. He wasn't trying
Oh,
to be hurtful. He was really confused. Like, how does a 17-year-old girl allow herself to be abused? Well, so acknowledge it and then tell your story to a safe, trusted
yes.
expert or confidant, a compassionate,
Yeah.
empathetic person.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
and sometimes when they reflect your story back to you and you're hearing it, you will actually develop some self-compassion, because a lot of survivors do not hold compassion for themselves.
Right.
They're beating themselves up. The long after the abuse is over, we continue to self-abuse through our negative messaging to ourselves.
Absolutely.
So acknowledging it. And then what I did was, I got comfortable, if I can use that word, I got comfortable writing and journaling and telling and owning that story for me. And then I started looking at places, just like we're talking right now. I started looking at places where I felt vulnerable and alone and hurt, and how I learned the different things that I learned, the lies that were there. And so you just start uncovering things and say, it's okay. You don't have to wear this mask of the tough girl because you're afraid vulnerability equals pain, or more harm or more abuse. So, it's just the journey that you start living. But I tell you, the Lord Jesus Christ and the healing of my mind, and then a choice, Donna. It's a choice.
It is a
I
choice.
could have stayed in that ash heap, but I wanted something better. I wanted that greatness that you talk about.
Right. So if I can summarize, kind of wind up what you said, is first acknowledge it, be kind to yourself,
Mhm.
journal through the emotions, identify the lies. But I also think that somewhere in there, you mentioned it previously, that forgiveness was part of your healing process, because and that seems super scary for us, because we equal forgiveness as vulnerable, and vulnerable
Yeah,
isn't safe. So
right.
learning that forgiveness actually is empowerment. It isn't, it isn't something to be feared as well. So that is
And
amazing. So go ahead.
I would just add, with the forgiveness piece, it really is for yourself. It's really not for
Yes,
them. And I'm not forgiving, I'm not letting you off the hook. I'm just letting God decide how he wants to handle it instead of me. But
absolutely.
forgiveness was kind of one of the last pieces for me. And I'll tell you why, because I forgave right away, early on, early on. And that, I thought, meant period, forgiven, period.
It's not.
Don't look at it, don't talk about it, don't bring it up, because that means you've moved back into
Yeah.
unforgiveness. So I had to give myself permission to say, wait, that's a spiritual bypass. You don't get to do that.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep. I agree.
So we just forgave many times throughout the journey. And that's what I discovered, is that it's not a one and done, it's layers of forgiveness.
So I love that component of forgiveness as well, that I often say forgiveness is like an onion. There's layers of it, because when this first happens to us, we don't have the capacity to forgive in full, because I haven't even processed what happened to me.
Exactly right.
And so as we begin to process what happens to us, we can forgive deeper. We can forgive more thoroughly, which sets me free, not the offender or not whoever hurt us, but it sets me free. And so that's the journaling process you were talking about, and all of that. is being kind to that child that was hurt
Mhm.
and learning because all of us women have that little girl in us that incurred some kind of trauma that is still hiding in the corner,
Mhm.
and learning to love her so that we can be the women that God created us to be. Thank you so much. I know there's more to your story, and we can't, it would take a lot longer than one podcast or even multiple to get into all that God has done in your life. So where are you today? Where has God brought you?
Lord is so good. God uses everything that we go through in our life. And so for me, I have been able to now move into the authoring of 5 books. And the first one that I started with was about, in fact, I see it right up there on my shelf, but for men to help them understand their wives if she's been sexually abused. And then I went and I wrote a book for the woman herself that's been abused.
Mhm.
And then I wrote a book on how to tell your survivor story. And then I moved from that and began to write on the freedom. It's called the Freedom Challenge. And this is where everything happens. It's the renewing of the mind. It's
Mm,
making the choices, and it's overcoming the areas where we get tripped up and we get stuck. Forgiveness, depression, anger, low self-esteem, those kinds of things.
right.
And so God has allowed me to share and tell my story. I am still teaching and leading my church, as I mentioned. And I'm coaching and mentoring women all over the place, doing podcasts as you are. And so just keep telling the story. I just keep sharing the goodness of God and helping women. I'm kind of known as the vision architect, helping women build the life of their dreams. We can create our futures through what we believe, what we choose, and what we do. And
Yes.
so that's what I'm involved in, and I'm loving it.
So how could people reach out to you if they wanted to learn more about your books and what you're doing in your church?
Yes, it's easy, just dawndamon.com,
Okay.
and they can find all things there. Keep it
Awesome.
simple.
What I hear you saying is you're a message of hope. You're a message of hope, that there's hope no matter what you've been through, that there is hope, and you don't have to stay wherever you find yourself, that you can be all that God created you to be. Thank you, Dawn, so much for coming today and sharing your story.
Thank you, Donna, for having me on. And thank you from one messenger of hope to the next messenger of hope. You're doing a great job, and it's a joy to collaborate with you.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There was so much good content and thoughts in this podcast today. And if you're a woman who can resonate with Dawn and my story, and you've had a painful childhood, I encourage you to reach out to me. My specialty is helping women, helping caring women who want more turn a painful past into the life of their dreams. You can turn your baggage into luggage so that you can live the life that you have always wanted. I have a step-for-step transformational program to help you do just that. It starts with an introductory consultation. Let's talk on the phone, let's talk by Zoom, and talk about where you could be and how to process it. One of my specialties is helping women who have been in counseling for years, but still seem to be going around the same mountain, if you will. My transformational programs do not help you cope with your problems. They help you eliminate them so that they are no longer a program. Let's talk today. Thank you for listening to You Are Designed for Greatness. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye for now.